What's up, everybody? Nick Dwyer back for the 10th inning here with another episode of This Day in Sports History. In yesterday's episode, we saw Ichiro Suzuki reach his 3,000th professional hit both in the Japanese League and in the MLB. We do have one person joining the 3,000 hit club today, as well as some British Senior Opens to talk about and some Tour de France's to get into. So if y'all enjoy this video, leave a like on it. If you're new to the channel, like what you see, hit that subscribe button. Let's get to it. This Day in Sports History. We start out today in 1844, and the first yacht club in the United States would be established as the New York Yacht Club, which was organized by John Koch Stevens and 8 friends. Now we move up to the 20th century. At the 1905 Tour de France, Louis Troseiler would claim his only Tour victory. 6 years later, at the 1911 Tour de France, Gustave Garrigou would claim his only Tour victory as well. 19 years later, in 1930, we move up to the first edition of the FIFA World Cup, which was held in Uruguay, and Uruguay would actually end up winning the entire tournament, defeating Argentina in the final 4-2 to claim the first ever World Cup title and their first of 2 titles. 2 years later, in 1932, the 10th edition of the Summer Olympic Games would open up in Los Angeles. We moved to 1933 at the 28th International Lawn Tennis Challenge, or the Davis Cup, and Fred Perry would defeat Andre Maryland 4-6, 8-6, 6-2, 7-5 to give Great Britain a 3-2 victory over France to claim their 6th of 10 overall Davis Cup titles. And speaking of the Davis Cup and Great Britain, we stick with that in 1935. Great Britain would win once again, claiming their 8th of 10 championships with a 5-0 victory over the USA. 4 years later, we move to the Tour de France, and Silvère Mais would win his 2nd of 2 Tour titles. 9 years later, in 1948, Emil Zatopek would win the 10,000 meter at the London Olympic Games in an Olympic record 29 minutes, 59.6 seconds. He would be the one to break it at the next Olympics in 1952. We don't go to 1952, but we move up to 1955 at the 42nd edition of the Tour de France, and Louison Bobet would claim the last of his 3 Tour victories. 4 years later, in Major League Baseball in 1959, in his Major League debut, San Francisco Giants' Willie McCovey would go 4-for-4 to start off his great Hall of Fame career. Back to the World Cup, in 1966, England would be going up against West Germany in the final, and this game would end up going into extra time when England would get the 4-2 victory, and Jeff Hurst would score a hat trick as England would get their title. This would be the only World Cup title for England. We move to Major League Baseball now, and we have a no-hitter alert in 1973. Jim Bibby of the Texas Rangers would no-hit the Oakland Athletics in a 6-0 victory. Bibby on the day, 9 innings pitched, 6 walks allowed, 13 strikeouts en route to the no-hitter. Then we move up to the 1976 Olympics, and in women's volleyball, the Japanese would defeat the Russian team to win the gold medal in volleyball. Back to baseball now in 1978, the Montreal Expos would just crush the Atlanta Braves in a 19-0 victory, collecting 28 hits and an NL record-tying 8 home runs in the victory. 2 years later, in 1980, we have some world records to talk about, 2 of them actually at the same event. At the U.S. National Swimming Championships in California, there was both a men's world record and a women's world record in the 200-meter butterfly. First on the women's side, Mary Meter would get it in 2 minutes, 6.37 seconds, and this would be broken a year later by Meter. Then on the men's side, Craig Beardsley would get it in 1 minute, 58.21 seconds, and we sense a pattern here. He would be the one to break his own record 1 year later. Now we move back to Major League Baseball in 1991, and Red Sox Carlos Quintana would become the 11th person to get 6 RBIs in 1 inning, the 3rd inning, after a grand slam, then a 2-run double. The grand slam came off Oil Can Boyd, and then the 2-run double came off of Wayne Rosenthal. Now, as we now know, 6 RBIs is not the most in an inning now, but 6 RBIs is nonetheless impressive. 1 year later, the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona, Yael Arad would become the first ever Olympic medalist from Israel when she would win the silver in the women's 61 kilogram judo. We have a Hall of Fame induction now. In 1995, Mike Schmidt would be the only member inducted by the BBWAA with a 94%, but then you also had Richie Ashburn, Vic Willis, William Hulbert, and Leon Day all voted in by the Veterans Committee, joining Schmidt. Also in 1995, at the British Senior Open, Brian Barnes, with a score of 7 under, would win after a playoff with Bob Murphy to claim his second Senior Open title. We end today's video off with two separate events from 2017. We'll start at the British Senior Open, and Bernard Langer, with a score of 4 under, would win his third of 4 Senior Open titles, 3 strokes ahead of runner-up Corey Pavin. Then in Major League Baseball, Rangers third baseman Adrián Beltré would become the 31st member of the 3,000 hit club after he doubled in the 4th inning in a 10-6 victory against the Orioles. By doing this, Beltré would become the first Dominican-born player to reach the coveted milestone. So there you have it. That's what happened on this day in sports history. If I left anything out, let me know down in the comment section. If I mispronounced any names, I do apologize. But I'll see everybody tomorrow for Nick Dwyer and the 10th inning. See ya.